all you heroes, hawks, heralds, crows, pirates, and wardens. Welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we unpack, discuss, and galaxy brain about all the lore behind the Dragon Age series.
We are so excited to bring you this podcast. Every episode, we'll be talking about a different topic in the Dragon Age universe. From character deep dives to exalted marches and elven gods, we will cover it all.
There will be spoilers. And always remember, swooping is bad.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we talk about Dragon Age and its lore. I am one of your hosts, Austin, also known as Teacup, and I'm here back after a long time with my co-host, and I'll let her introduce herself.
That's me. I'm Shelby, or She-Cup. I'm also super excited to be back. I know it's been a hot minute. We did move. We're mostly unpacked now, not 100%, but we're like mostly there. So we're getting back into the swing of podcasting and all that entails. And so we're here today with September's Patron Chat.
Yeah, we are here with September's Patron Chat with we have some lovely patrons here, and so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and I'm just going to let them go in the order that's on my screen. So first we have Capricorn Tower.
Hello, this is Capricorn Tower, also known as Nick.
And then we have LVCC13.
Hello, everyone. I am LVCC13, or Lizzie.
And then we have Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy. No second name for me, just Andy.
And then the Crimson Knight.
Hello, also known as Steven.
And then Ambrosian. So I don't know why, just that Greek mythology on the brain. All right. Well, Shelby, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we have a interesting topic today. We've done one similar to this with TV shows before. And so today we're talking about writing your own book that's set in Thedas. Now, we're going to suspend disbelief for the next 45 minutes to an hour. Because I know not all of us may be writers. That's okay. Pretend you're the best writer in the world. For the sakes of this patron chat, you are an amazing writer and you have the capability and the permission to write a book in the Dragon Age universe. So I guess technically, if you want to take it this far, it doesn't necessarily have to be set in Thedas. If you have ideas for the continents elsewhere in the world of Dragon Age, that's fine. I just said Thedas because that's what we all know. So with all that being said, we are writing our own books. Give us the story, any kind of plot points you have. Feel free to be as specific as possible. That is phenomenal. And if you just have a general idea, that's okay too. Try to keep it fairly safe for work, since that's being asked in the chat currently. It can be a little spicy, but nothing explicit. So who would like to go first?
I'm willing to go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my idea was to explore the Felicissima Armada, because we don't get very much of them in the games. We just have Isabella, which it would be great to see her again. I'm sure she would show up in the book at some point. But I kind of want to explore the politics of the Raiders. How are they still united? How are they dealing with the Dragon Age Kunari invasion, since they were originally formed to repel the Kunari back in the Storm Age or Steel Age or whatever. And so now that the Kunari are invading Northern Thedas again, what are they doing about it? What is their vibe right now? It would let us go to new places like Lomarin and Estwatch and maybe Antiva, which we've all wanted to see. Give it to us. Dragon Age. But yeah, I'm very interested, and as far as I know, uh, there's also been like mage captains of the Armada. Uh, so that would be interesting. I mean, obviously, in a post-Inquisition world, there are no such thing as apostates technically. So that could be a thing anyways, but I'm pretty sure they predate the fall of the circles. So that would be interesting to explore. There is sort of like the big like thing hanging over the Armada is the way that they participate in the slave trade. So that would definitely have to be addressed, and hopefully the story would, if I was writing it, would address sort of probably involving Isabella coming back and being like, we're not doing this anymore. I'm going to be in charge of this entire Armada, and we're not doing that anymore. It was bad. Let's move on. So yeah, I mostly just have vibes. I don't have a specific plot in mind. Uh, she does have a big hat, so she must be in charge. That's true. Um, and so, yeah, I think it would mostly deal with the role that the Raiders play in Thedas and their response to the Kunari and that. But I think it could also be interesting to focus maybe on like one specific like ship that goes across the Amaranthine Ocean and sees what's beyond the boundaries of Thedas. That would be an interesting way to approach it as well.
And I also think it would be really interesting just to like see if there are any differences like among the different captains and the different ships. Like maybe it's just one rogue ship perhaps that deals in the slave trade. Like we don't really know enough details about them to even make a statement either way, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm looking at the fan wiki right now, and they're saying it's a loose confederation of ships and raiders. So there's no real central governing body. So it's hard to say. I imagine each ship has its own way of dealing with everything. So I think that could introduce a lot of conflict into the plot and a lot of drama. And it would be, I think it'd be really interesting. Plus, pirates are just cool.
Yeah, everybody loves a good pirate story.
And they're very gay, so that's also a thing.
10 out of 10.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Kuzland Origins mother, wasn't she like from a family of the Raiders or something like that, or related to them in some way? I could be totally wrong. It could be something someone made up for a fan fiction. I don't remember if it's a real thing or if it's a fake thing.
I want to say that might be something you remember from fan fiction. I know that she is a warrior for sure. Like she is trained as a warrior, but I'm not sure if I'm looking at the fan wiki right now, but okay. So no, this is vaguely correct. It says that on her page, Eleanor Kuzland, her maiden name is MacEnraig. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it says that she was the daughter of a band who they lived off of the Storm Coast, and that her father was a famous raider who is known as the Storm Giant. From birth, her and her 3 siblings were raised on the deck of a warship. Although all 4 of the siblings were skilled raiders, Eleanor was by far the most skilled. And at the age of 15, she took down her first Orlesian warship, but it does not explicitly confirm or deny that they were a part of that specific faction or not. So yes and no, I think is the answer to that.
This is unrelated, but that's a fun game now. Canon or fanfic.
Maybe that's what we can do for our No, I was gonna say maybe that's what we can do for our December all patron chat.
That definitely makes the Kuzlan origin more interesting to me now. I did not know that at all. And now the rogue Kuzlan that I played makes even more sense because he could have learned it all from his mom.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And there's like surprisingly a lot of information about her on the wiki. So I'm also writing down potential side character. So who would like to go next?
So mine is that if you have listened to any of the other podcasting, you know that my favorite book series is Aragon. And so I would write a similar kind of story, but instead of like, this young kid finding a dragon and becoming a writer, we would talk about it the first Grey Warden that found a griffin. And kind of like how, and then how, maybe the Grey Wardens were like, no, you can't do this. This is stupid. And then they ended up working out. And it would also might play a little bit like How to Train Your Dragon as well.
That's fun. I enjoy that a lot. So who's gonna be your Braum character, Austin?
Grumpy Grey Warden.
Okay. I mean, they're all kind of grumpy. I think I would be too if I was a Grey Warden.
I don't remember if the first flight is where they show up with the Griffins or if it was one of the subsequent flights. But if it is the first flight, that'd be cool. Anyways, because we don't know anything about the first flight. We don't even know how they defeated Dumont or how they created Grey Wardens, because technically they're supposed to include Blood of the Archdemon to do the joining. So how BioWare? Tell me.
I think that there is a codex entry or something that confirms that they killed the archdemon once and then it came back and they had to kill it again. And I want to say by that point in time, they had figured out like whatever it is, the mumbo jumbo magics. I think that maybe by the second killing, they had figured it out, but I don't remember. I'm a little rusty on my lore, clearly. But I also Googled if we know anything about the first Grey Warden who found a griffin, anything like that. And literally every single search is like, what happened to the griffins? Can the griffins come back? And I'm like, okay, this is the opposite of what I want, but good try, Google.
I know it might be the first flight because really the only like story we get of griffins and Grey Wardens is the fourth flight when they're ending. So at least the second. I mean, maybe the first, but I think at least by the time the second flight rolls around, probably.
Anyway, so Austin, did you have anything else you wanted to add about yours?
No.
All right. Well, who wants to go next? Lizzie. Okay, go ahead.
I kind of had two ideas. One just now because I was eating. A Thedosian cookbook would be fun. That would be fun to write, like a food blog, but in a cookbook form. Like, I went to XYZ places and learned how to make XYZ things. The ham tastes of despair would be fun. But also, I think what would be really, really fun to write would be a biography about Varric and all the lies he's ever told. Separating fact from fiction. And of course, there would be a whole chapter just of an interview with Varric being like, okay, was this a lie or was this the lie? Or are they both lies?
I love that idea. There is a really fun fan fiction I read one time, and it's basically just like Varric is, I don't know if you, I can't remember the name of it, but there's like a serial newspaper kind of thing, like Dear Prudence, that exists in Theta. The Randy Dowager, that's the name of it. Anyway, so the fan fiction was like they had Varric as the writer of that. And so people would write into him and he would give them advice, and it was absolutely hysterical. Unfortunately, I lost it though. And so I have no idea the writer or the name of it or anything like that. So if anyone knows what I'm talking about who's listening, please give me the details because I'd never finished reading it. Anyway.
There was another one like that. That was like Varric is the equivalent of what's the writer's name from Bridgerton? What are the papers from Bridgerton? What is it called?
Lady Whistledown? Is that right?
Yes, Lady Whistledown. He's basically Lady Whistledown of Thedas. And it was so funny.
That's super funny. There is a cookbook that's coming out later this year. I put the link in the chat. It is funny to me. This is a little bit sassy. I don't know. They announced it like last year, I think, and the cover looked absolutely atrocious. Like every single recipe looked disgusting. They've since updated it and it looks a lot better now. So there's that. I think it comes out in October. It has over 60 recipes. So I love that idea. Well, do we want to do one more and then we can go to our mid break? Who wants to go next?
I was gonna say mine is a fan fiction. It was a friend that requested it. They sent me a prompt, which, in my opinion, the prompt was diabolical, and said, "Make this work." Which it does, of course, follow along the actual storyline of events from the first to the third game, but also explores a lot of stuff that the games haven't, because you can only put so much into a game, into a show, into the books. So it explores some of the regions that we haven't actually explored in the games or in the books yet. Explores a lot of cultural things, which part of the reason the friend asked was they figured, having an indigenous person make up and add aspects to Dalish culture would be really cool. See how that plays out. So it sort of expands on what we know, expands on how magic is used, which I know in games you can only do so much in terms of magics and mechanics and whatnot. But kind of explores how magic can be combined, how it can be used in ways we haven't seen in games. Like in the first game in Origins, I know that you can use it's like a rock armor spell, essentially to boost your defense. Well, this mage can fight in close quarters, which means instead of using that to boost her defense, she'll harden her hand and sock you with it if you get close enough. Which, to me, I love the idea of a mage throwing hands, because having them just kind of sidelined in the back and then being helpless if actual fighters with swords and other things get close enough. It's like, what if that mage went, oh, you know what? Psych, I multi-class. I can do this. Because you see this in other games, like you see this in D&D where you can multi-class, and the idea of a mage who kind of doubles as sort of a roguish character who is able to combine spells and use them in ways that we don't see in the games would be interesting, while also exploring other aspects of Thedas as a whole, which we haven't seen. Obviously, there's romance. This friend is a bleeding heart. They listen to the podcast, so they're going to hear this. They wanted a forbidden romance, so the mage is someone who is very proficient in blood magic and is also very loud in terms of, when asked, will not teach it to people, because essentially says you can only go so far until you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more. So this is a mage who can use it, but also is an advocate for explaining how dangerous it can be. So we thought that would be sort of interesting. This has been in the works for over a year because it's very complicated to try and make it make sense. But just the idea of exploring things that we haven't in game and in books was just a really fun idea to us. The character herself comes from south of the Kokari Wilds. So that was something that we thought was really fun, was to have an elf who essentially says, I'm just an elf. The elf does not consider herself to be Dalish because their clan split off a long time ago. That was another thing we thought would be interesting with the whole fall of Arlathan, or Arlathan, however you pronounce it. I pronounce it different ways. We kind of thought, what if elves and different elven clans and groups had already split off before the fall? And what if some of these groups kind of retained a lot of older cultural norms and bits of the old language, and then the fall happens and these guys are essentially unaffected because they're so remote and so isolated from everyone else? And then the blight happens and it's a hot mess. but sort of just exploring things that haven't already been explored while trying to keep it in canon and trying to keep it as not lore breaky as possible, even though BioWare breaks their own lore all the time. We just thought that would be something that would be really fun to see and try and make happen.
That all sounds amazing. I think Lizzie said in chat that she wanted to read this fan fiction, and I completely agree. So if you ever finish it and want to post it, you should definitely post it in the Discord.
Yeah, it will not be safe for work. I will say
fine.
There will be the romance is an existing character. We figured it would be incredibly ironic to try and build a relationship with this character, but the whole joke will be they meet before the events of the first game and then, of course, reunite during Inquisition. So,
do you perhaps want to give us a hint as to who this character may be?
Well, I will say the main character that we've created is an elven blood mage, and the character that they would fall in love with is not a mage and has bad experience with mages, which is what made this so hard to make happen.
Okay, very fun.
Worked it out. We made it work, but it was tough at first.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. Well, let's go to the mid-break, and then we'll come back and do everybody else.
What makes your ram so special?
Well, he's always brought the family luck, and his advice helped us make our fortune.
Your ram offered advice.
How do you get your hair to do that, Dorian? With magic?
With proper hygiene and grooming. Maybe all three of you should get acquainted.
Kirkwall's not brown enough for me. But hey, no darkspawn.
Ferelden wasn't that brown. The dirt and muck gave it character.
Well, welcome to the middle of the show where we talk about all things with podcasts that don't have to do with the lore of Dragon Age. It's here where we thank our patrons, like all of you here. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for everything that you do and coming on the show. Also, special thank you to our first patrons, Lisa M. and Genesis. Special thank you to our Nug King, Lewis H. And a welcome to Andy, who is one of our newest patrons coming up here. Thank you for your support. Glad to announce you on the podcast. We have not had an episode since you joined, so here's your shout out and thank you. And then if you would like to join the Patreon, you can do so at going to patreon.com/DALorecast or finding the link in the episode description. You can sign up there. If you want to come on these chats, you need to sign up at the first Enchanter tier. Other than that, if you want to help us out, you can leave us reviews or comments and ratings on Spotify. If you leave us 5 stars and some words, we will read them out on a future episode of the show. Last but not least, come join the Discord. You can hang out with us there and talk about all kinds of stuff, share pictures of your pets, see our dog Snips, talk about Dragon Age, talk a lot about Baldur's Gate 3 and our other games chat. Just a lot about that. Occasionally Starfield comes in there, so if you want to talk about Starfield, you can do that. You can check out our other show, the Assassin's Creed Lorecast, or my other show, the Holocron Histories podcast. Other than that, come join the Discord and have a great time. And Shelby, do we have a review to read?
We do, but we can just read them next week because we've got some catching up to do.
Okay. Other than that, thank you all, and that's all we got for the middle of the show.
All right, well, let's get back into it.
Have a care where your eyes linger, Alistair.
Yes, well, don't worry. It's not what you think.
I see.
I was looking at your nose.
And what is it about my nose that captivates you so?
I was just thinking that it looks exactly like your mother's.
I hate you so much.
I was one of the crows you hired to kill the Grey Wardens.
I thought you looked familiar.
Well, I just wanted to report that I failed my mission, Logain.
You don't say.
I'm terribly broken up over it.
Well, thank you kindly for informing me.
Oh, you fear barbarians will swoop down upon you.
Yes, swooping is bad.
Yeah, Stephen, I'll turn it over to you to go before me.
All right. So the idea for the book I had was uh, basically the fall of Elvenon. Like, we don't have a whole lot about that part in time since it's so far back, but like just exploring the relationship between Finharel and Mythal, like the death of Mythal, and when Finharel locks up the other Evanuris. I'm sure we'll get some more of that in Dreadwolf, but I think it would be interesting to go into a lot more detail in an actual book.
Yeah, and you can be so much more detailed in a book, so I think that would be a really good like setting to do that in. So, yeah.
It would also be interesting to explore the perspective of someone that isn't an Evanuris within that setting. Like, what is their vibe? I can't imagine many people were happy with the way things were. So I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wrote down two answers. This one was one of my answers, but I think it would be really interesting if it was like also kind of a Game of Thrones style between like Tevinter taking over, so you can get perspectives from like Tevinter leaders and people in Elvenon, Arlathon. So you have kind of this like back and forth of the perspectives. That would be cool.
It would be cool to hear more about the Forgotten Ones too, since we don't really know anything about them.
Who are they? I forgot.
Boo, everyone, boo this man. Cool. Well, my other answer that I had is about Andraste, and of course I had to bring a codex entry. Surprise, surprise. So this codex entry is from Inquisition. It's called The Children of Andraste. It's very fascinating codex. So it's technically from a letter from Sister Galena, written in 912 Dragon. So a little bit earlier in the Dragon Age, but it basically is about Andraste's bloodline. And so I just want to read a little bit of it because it's just interesting. So it says, we all know that Andraste and the Betrayer raised 5 children. The eldest 3 were sons, Isarath, Evrion, and Verold. It goes on and says that none of these 3 sons, however, were born of Andraste. They were born of the Betrayer's concubine, Gillivan. People choose to overlook the fact that Andraste came from the Alamari tribesmen and that they were barbarians, not the Ferelden's. They were savage warriors who took concubines. And because Andraste was thought to be too weak to bear children, the Betrayer took a concubine. However, later in life, Andraste proved all predictions wrong and had 2 daughters by the Betrayer, Ibris and Vivial. They were kept out of the public eye and not permitted to marry, though they both had consorts. Ibris had 1 child, a woman who supposedly perished on a voyage to Denerim. The youngest daughter, Vivial, was more controversial, a strong-headed woman who defied her family by falling in love with a mage of Tevinter named Regulon. So I think that is very fascinating because Andraste's bloodline, we basically have no idea what happened to it because her 2 biological children, I should say, are women. And so their stories, they married into men's families. And so the genealogy basically lost track of them, so to speak. And so I think it would be interesting that we have some kind of story following this time. And before I move on to how I would set up the book, the codex at the very end says, if Andraste's true bloodline exists, it lies solely in the descendants of Vivial. This is the interesting part. And the suspicion of my order is that it produces only daughters. So seeing as how the Chantry thinks Andraste's bloodline has produced only daughters, and how the one daughter who had a child married a mage, I think it would be really interesting to follow like a female mage who discovers or whatever that her bloodline comes through Andraste, like in the present day, and then have at least one, maybe two stories in the past following other descendants of the bloodline, maybe even Vivial herself, and then somewhere kind of in between the two, so we can get glimpses of what happens to Andraste's bloodline, what all of these women are doing in these, years since Andraste lived. All of that, I'm very interested to know what has happened. So that's my idea. Also, I don't know if Dorian will be related to Andraste, but I'm not going to rule it out entirely. That would be interesting for sure. Mother Giselle might have a heart attack, but yeah.
Like his ego would need to be any bigger, but it would be hilarious.
Would he even care? Who knows?
I think he would only care in that it would give him something to give all of his friends in Southern Thedas crap about. Especially Cassandra, because she'd be flipping shit.
Yes, for sure.
I hadn't heard, so I knew about the sort of sons and daughters thing with Andraste. I hadn't heard the name of Maferath's concubine before, but now looking at it, Gillivan sounds very elven to me. So I'm curious if Maferath's sons could be half elf. Shrug.
Definitely a possibility. One that I would not hate.
You're telling me that a Ferelden or future Ferelden, what would be future Ferelden's leader, is obsessed with an elven concubine and produces half-elf children?
No.
That doesn't sound familiar at all.
True. Well, Andy, I know you cut out on us a few minutes ago, so I will turn it over to you to share your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me? I think my internet connection is really struggling today.
No, you sound great.
I'm sorry I missed a big chunk of the other answers. The ones I did hear were amazingly creative, and I was actually taking notes because there's so many wonderful ideas. I think my interpretation of this question was a little literal because I am actually working on a fanfic right now. Maybe this is very basic girl. Maybe I shouldn't say it's basic girl because then everybody's going to get mad at me. But it's a soulless manse, of course, a soul of Ellen. Classic. I'm like 40 pages into it right now. So I wanted to delve into some of the parts of the Soul of Ellen relationship we don't see in the video game, because things seem to escalate pretty quickly as you're playing. As you're playing Inquisition. So I wanted to fill in some of those gaps. I wanted to really flesh out a Lavellin character that I think would actually work with Solus and the Solus Manse. I wanted to investigate Solus as a character a little bit more. I got really deep into the relationship between Solus and Vivian, because I feel like they would be fighting political battles behind the scenes since she's so important to Orlais. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. Some inspiration I got just listening to everyone was like an unauthorized biography of Bianca. Varric's Bianca. Bianca's unauthorized biography. I would love to see. Obviously, Varric can't tell that story, but maybe somebody else could. So that would be great. And I did also see a fanfic online where someone did Soul of Ellen text messages, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So if I can find it again, I will definitely post it to the Discord. But yeah, I'm going to stop talking now.
No, you're all good. Yeah, those are really great ideas. I very much loved all of it, especially the unauthorized biography. Sounds amazing. But whenever you're done with your fanfic, also post it in the Discord. We would love to read it and share it for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I also Well, never mind. I think I'll save that for the Discord. But I did some comparisons between the Solus and Llewellyn relationship to like classical romances of the past, like Tristan and Isolde and Dido and Aeneas. So if there's interest, I can post my notes on that too.
I can pretty much guarantee that there will be interest. So yeah, that sounds fascinating. All right.
Cool.
Well, does anybody else have any last final thoughts before we kind of wrap it up for the evening?
Just that since we brought up fanfic in two responses, I did end up writing like 2 chapters of fic exploring my Inquisitor before the Conclave explosion, because I wanted to kind of give him more backstory. So I don't know. It'd be really interesting maybe to have a whole separate episode on people's favorite fan fiction or fan fiction that they've written or something.
Yeah, I'll add that to my short list as well.
I love that idea of like fleshing out our Inquisitor's backstory too. That would be a fun patron chat too. Like, what's your headcanon for your Inquisitor?
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Austin to do the wrap ups and let y'all plug all your things, etc.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. I'm just going to go around and let you just share anything you have going on or where people can get in contact with you. And so I'm just going to start same order that I started. So we have Capricorn Tower.
Yeah, Capricorn Tower. I'm pretty active on the Discord. I don't have anything else to plug though.
All right. LVCC13.
I am LVCC13 and I was on Twitch. I'm kind of mad at them right now and I'm busy, so I haven't really been streaming. But I also have been doing a little bit of voice acting, so keep an eye out for a certain Avengers fan podcast episode coming out hopefully soon.
And then Andy.
Hi, yes, I'm Andy on Discord. I'm Gandalfs_alt on Discord as well. That is my username. That is also my name on Archive of Our Own, if people want to look up any of my random fanfics.
Thank you. The Crimson Knight.
Crimson Knight on Discord. Nothing else to plug.
Thank you. And then Ambrosian.
So I'm Ambrosian or Ambro, whatever works. I don't have anything to plug yet. I do have an AO3, but I'm debating making a new one just because of what's currently. I only write what people ask me to write. So, but I am on the Discord.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. A special thank you again to our special Nug King tier patron, Lewis H. Greatly appreciate his support and everything going on there. And then, yeah, thank you all for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at DA Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions, topics to unpack, or side character suggestions, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's easily the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. You can find us there on patreon.com/DragonAgeLorecast.
The Dragon Age Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Do you love Dragon Age? Have you always wanted to learn more about its vast world and detailed lore? Are you still attached to your hero of Ferelden, even a decade after Dragon Age Origins came out? Or maybe you're a newer fan, still discovering a new tidbit or quest every day.
Well, either way, the Dragon Age Lorecast is the podcast for you. I'm Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I'm Shelby, also known as She Cup.
And come and join us as we embark on a journey to explore and discover all things Dragon Age.
We'll discuss all kinds of topics, from lyrium to the chantry and the great mysteries of the old gods, and even more that even you BioWare superfans might not know about.
So come and listen on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. And always remember,
swooping